at low tide off the western coast of India. There are moments when the sea seems to hesitate. The water pulls back just enough to reveal fragment stone, outlines beneath the surface, faint geometric shapes that do not quite resemble anything natural. Divers who descend into these waters describe walls, foundations, and objects that appear arranged rather than scattered, as if something deliberate once stood where only currents now move. And yet, these structures rest beneath meters of ocean. According to conventional understanding, they should not be there, because of human civilizations developed along coastlines, as nearly all early societies did then. Those coastlines should still exist, somewhere near the places we recognize today. But in some cases, they don't. They are submerged. The official explanation begins with something well established. At the end of the last ice age, roughly 12,000 years ago, vast ice sheets began to melt. As they receded, sea levels rose slowly, steadily, reshaping coastlines across the planet. Land that was once exposed gradually disappeared beneath expanding oceans. This process is supported by geological data, sediment cores, and climate models. It is not controversial. It is widely accepted. And yet, the scale of that transformation invites a quieter question. If sea levels rose significantly, then how much land was lost? And more importantly, what might have existed on that land before it disappeared? Because early humans did not settle randomly. They gravitated toward water rivers, lakes, and especially coastlines. These areas provided food, transportation, and stability. They were the natural starting points for communities to grow, which means that many of the earliest human settlements may now lie beneath the sea, not as isolated ruins, but as entire landscapes. Consider the submerged remains near the ancient city of Dwar, where underwater explorations have revealed structures that appear organized, with stone formations suggesting walls, pathways, and possibly man-made objects. The interpretation of these findings varies, and debates continue regarding their age and origin. Some researchers see evidence of human activity, while others suggest natural formations shaped by currents and time. The uncertainty remains. Further east, near the coast of Japan, lies the Yonaguni Monument, a massive underwater structure composed of sharp angles, flat terraces, and step-like formations. To some observers, it resembles a constructed site, almost architectural in its precision. To others, it is a natural geological formation, shaped by fractures and erosion over thousands of years. Both explanations coexist. Neither fully resolves the visual impression, and this is where a pattern begins to emerge, not as a conclusion, but as a repetition of questions across different locations. In the Mediterranean, submerged ruins have been found off ancient coastlines. In the North Sea, a vast area, once known as Doggerland, connected what is now the United Kingdom to mainland Europe. Today, it lies beneath shallow waters, its existence reconstructed through sonar mapping and recovered artifacts. It was once inhabited. This is not speculation, but the extent of that habitation is still being pieced together. The official narrative describes these places as prehistoric landscapes, occupied by hunter-gatherer groups before rising seas, gradually forced migration inland. This explanation is grounded in evidence, and yet, when viewed collectively, these submerged regions suggest something larger, not necessarily advanced civilizations in the modern sense, but organized human presence communities that lived, adapted, and developed along coastlines that no longer exist. And if those coastlines are gone, then so too are the majority of the physical traces they left behind, which introduces an interesting limitation. Our understanding of early human history is based largely on what remains above water, what we can excavate, what we can see. But what if a significant portion of that history is simply inaccessible, not destroyed, but hidden, covered by oceans that rose gradually, quietly, over centuries? There is also the question of timing. Sea level rise after the last ice age is often described as gradual, and in many respects, it was. But there are periods within that timeline where the increase appears. More rapid meltwater pulses that raise sea levels faster than surrounding centuries. These events are still studied, modeled, and debated. They do not necessarily imply sudden catastrophe, but they do suggest moments of accelerated change. moments when coastlines could have shifted within generations rather than millennia. For communities living near the edge of the sea, such changes would not have been abstract. They would have been immediate, visible, disruptive, and perhaps, in some cases, displacing entire populations. Across cultures, there are recurring stories accounts of lands swallowed by water, cities lost beneath the sea, entire worlds described as having existed before a great flooding event. These narratives appear in different forms, separated by geography and language. They are often interpreted as myth, metaphor, or collective memory shaped by environmental changes, and that interpretation is reasonable. But the consistency of the theme is notable, not because it proves anything, but because it reflects something repeatedly observed or imagined across distant cultures, a shared idea, a shared loss. Returning to the physical evidence, modern technology has begun to reveal more of what lies beneath the oceans. Sonar mapping, underwater archaeology, and remote sensing have identified structures, formations, and anomalies that would have been impossible to detect even a century ago. And yet, exploration remains limited. The oceans cover more than 70% of the Earth's surface. Most of it is still unexplored, which means that what we have found so far may represent only a fraction of what exists, not hidden intentionally, but simply beyond reach. And this is where the perspective begins to shift. Instead of viewing history as a continuous, well-documented progression from early settlements to modern civilization, it becomes possible to consider it as something more fragmented, partially preserved, partially submerged, a record shaped not only by what happened, but by what survived above the waterline, because survival, in this context, is selective. Stone structures on high ground endure. Wooden structures near coastlines do not. Entire landscapes can vanish beneath rising seas, leaving little trace accessible to future generations. So when we look at the timeline of human development, the question is not only what we know, but also what we are missing. Not missing as in lost forever, but missing from our current field of view. There is no need to assume hidden civilizations of advanced technology to recognize this gap. Even modest coastal communities, if submerged, would leave behind patterns that are difficult to reconstruct without direct access. And if those communities were larger than we currently assume, if they were more organized, more widespread, then the gap becomes more significant. Not necessarily rewriting history, but expanding it, adding layers that are currently invisible. And perhaps that is the most unsettling aspect of this idea. Not that something extraordinary is being hidden, but that something ordinary human life, settlement, adaptation may have existed on a scale we have not fully accounted for, simply because it now lies beneath the ocean. The sea, in this sense, is not just a boundary. It is an archive, vast, silent, and largely unread. And every so often, through erosion, shifting tides, or deliberate exploration, fragments of that archive appear just enough to suggest that there is more to be seen, but not enough to form a complete picture. So when we consider the coastlines we know today, it may be worth remembering that they are not fixed. They are temporary. They have moved before, they will move again. And somewhere beyond and beneath layers of water, sediment, and time, there may be traces of lives lived in places that no longer exist on any map. Not erased entirely, just relocated, out of sight, leaving behind only questions. And perhaps the most important of those questions is not whether entire civilizations were lost beneath rising seas, but how much of our understanding of the past depends on what the ocean has chosen to reveal and what it has chosen to keep.